here by a very special guest, Carina Glover, and I want to tell this story. She's going to talk all about the great things and how she's building the next billion-dollar tech company, right? But I want to give you your flowers because I don't know if you are aware, when I first went into entrepreneurship in 2020, one of my first speaking opportunities was with HerHeadquarters.
At the Power Players Conference?
Yes.
I didn't know that. And you were actually one of the most memorable speakers, actually.
Oh,
so
thank you.
That's crazy that it was one of your first ones.
It was like my second one. So I started full-time entrepreneurship in July. Okay. And your conference, I think, was at the end of that month, or like maybe like the week of. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that. I remember pitching for that and all of that. So it's great that we're here.
Yeah.
And
full circle.
Chat. Yes, definitely full circle. So I want to I'm just going to jump into some deep stuff real quick.
Okay.
All right?
Okay.
Let's get this out the way. I want to ask
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Just take it off, right? 90 days in the desert. Mm-hmm. Are you smiling?
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
90 days in the desert, what that means to me is I think everyone goes through a season where it's you're in the deep end, literally. You might feel like you are drowning. You feel the pressure. You feel like you're out here by yourself. And it was in my entrepreneur journey, I've had lots of hardships. Like, I'm not new to the struggle of being a business owner, but 90 days in the desert was by far the hardest season of being a business owner and the closest I've ever been to quitting and not caring about why I started. If I almost drowned, it was in the desert. I know that, but.
So why did you start HerHeadquarters?
So full transparency, my vision for my life was, at the time, I wanted to be an event planner. I had an event planning company, and a little bit of the backstory. This was fall 2013. I was a very stereotypical broke college student, but I was starting my first business, an event planning company. And at the time, I had a lot of mindsets that weren't actually healthy and that weren't going to be a part of the foundation of a successful business, right? And one of those unhealthy mindsets was, if you want to be successful, you can do it alone. And if you're good at something, you should be to do it by yourself. And so, yeah, girl, like, don't we listen? So I remember planning my launch party, and the city I'm from, Omaha, Nebraska, is really small. So a lot of people were like, oh, I hear you're starting a business, I would love to partner with you on your launch party. We do this and I can help you with this, and we do that. Multiple opportunities came about, and with that mindset, like, well, if I partner with you and I let you help contribute this and this to the launch party, and I'm supposed to be an event planner, isn't that going to make me look bad? So I said no to everybody. Fast forward, saved up money, spent a few $1,000s on a venue, gift bags, food, like the whole shebang. I planned the entire thing by myself. I invited about maybe like 80 to 100 people that I wanted there. And this wasn't like friends and family. This was like potential clients that I wanted. I woke up with like the old Kanye attitude, like, this is my day, I'm about to shine. Like, just, you couldn't tell me nothing. And at the end of the day, I was crying in the bathroom floor because not a single person on that guest list showed up. Well, besides my boyfriend, now husband, and my best friend, but like, they was just there for support. No one on the guest list of potential clients showed up.
Wow.
And I was devastated. Like, they say there's no hit worse than the one you don't see coming. I didn't see that one coming at all. And so I'm really big on like self-reflection and thinking, like, what did I do to contribute to this experience or to this outcome, good or bad? And so when I finally, like, mentally and then physically got off the ground, for the next few weeks, I was thinking, like, what did I do wrong? And there was a series of mistakes, like literally first-time business owner, and didn't really know anyone else who owned a business. And I feel like one of the number one mistakes I made was I did not see the value in brand partnerships or collaborations. And if I had said yes to just one of those women, they would have been invested in the success of this event too. And so they would have caught on to the mistakes that I was making that would have ended up in that disaster. Like, okay, hold on, girl. Like, you didn't make people RSVP. You didn't check up, see if they got the invite. Like, simple mistakes. And so, long story short, that event or that business did go on to be successful. I ended up working with like the Grammys and NFL Honors Awards, and I was still in Omaha and like flying to LA for events regularly. And then at some point, this is about 2 to 3 years in, I got to a place where I hated events. Like, I would be at an event that was going flawlessly, and I would be thinking, I can't wait to go home. Like, I felt so detached from it, and it almost happened overnight. And so one day, left LA, went back home to my city in Omaha, and I was laying in bed at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was praying. I was like, I don't think I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, if you can make it clear to me. And I had almost like a vision of a memory very clear of like that moment on the bathroom floor, and the realization that what contributed to that was your inability to see the value in partnerships. And what you're supposed to be doing is connecting women-owned businesses to partnerships nationwide. And I could almost see, like, as clearly as I can see you, and I have pretty good vision, that's how clearly I saw this app.
Wow.
So after that, and I didn't know the first thing about where to start, how to start, but I was obedient. And so the next day I took my website down. I didn't take on any more contracts. I finished the ones that I had. And then I want to say within 6 months, I was in an accelerator program for entrepreneurs building tech products, because I didn't know. I was trying to do all the right things, but I was doing them out of order. And that really can hurt you. Like, the order in which you do and execute things can help you or hurt you. But that's kind of the backstory. So the seed was planted for HerHeadquarters 2013, but we didn't launch until 2019. So it was a very long process.
Wow. Okay, so you said a lot.
Yeah.
Right? You talked about building a business, thinking that you can do everything on your own, and how that led you to HerHeadquarters years later.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that story, so that's very, profound. My question for you, though, is when you had the event planning company, and you decided to shut everything down, because I just recently went through something similar. I've been a coach, and I've been providing services through my coaching program, but I realized I did not enjoy it anymore.
Yeah.
And I shut everything down.
And that's crazy to people, especially if outside looking in, they're like, well, your business is successful, right, and you're doing this, and I really realized that, like, you can be good at something naturally. It doesn't mean that it's your calling or your purpose.
Yes. And so I have not met many people who are like me in the fact that they would just shut it down and be like, nope, I'm done with it. Because my mom will always say, like, Tara, when she has a vision, when she knows what she wants to do, she's going to go after it. And if that means shutting a business down, that's what I did. So what were you feeling in that moment? Were you afraid? Were you scared? Or were you just like, look, God, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to be obedient. And this is what it is.
I think, looking back, I was kind of happy to have an out. Because it bothered me when I would be at events, and honest to God, I was thinking, I can't wait to go home. I cannot wait till this is over. And nothing's going wrong, and that is kind of uncommon in the event planning world. Something always is happening.
Right.
And so when I realized that something I used to enjoy felt like a job, I didn't want it anymore. And so when I kind of had the revelation of, like, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do or how to do it, but I know that this vision God gave me is for me, and so I know that means that He has my back throughout this entire journey. So I felt like, yo, I'm winning, like, and I was scared, and I will say, like, to go from one industry where, maybe if you're not an expert, like, what you're doing, to go to another industry where you are literally starting at the bottom. I don't have a background in coding. I don't have a background in tech. Like, the most tech experience I had was doing my little MySpace page back in the day. Like, that's it, So to be having conversations with people, and in one sentence they're mentioning 3 or 4 words that I don't even know, talking about terminologies and technology terminologies, I almost felt stupid to a degree. I wish I could think of another word, but I really felt almost inadequate. And so I had to learn how to embrace learning something. I had to get comfortable in not being the expert and allow myself to be the student.
Life is a continual journey, right? You have to constantly be willing and open to learn. And I think that's what makes the most successful, or the people who are successful is because you're never afraid to start from the bottom.
Yeah.
Right? You're never afraid. You may be afraid, but you do it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's really important.
And you have to find comfort in learning. You have to find comfort in like, listen, I know y'all are levels ahead of me, but like talk to me on my level, because I don't understand what you're saying. So break this down in simpler terms. And I had to get used to it. And then eventually people that were kind of coaching me and mentoring me be like, okay, Carina, let's say, and then they would give like an example of a car, and I'm like, okay, I get it now. Now I understand the importance of why you're suggesting that we do this to the product,
right? Versus
me just trusting everyone to do everything, and I'm not learning. Like, I will never be the CFO. I will never be the lead engineer. You know what I mean? I'm never going to be any of those things, but it doesn't mean that I should not be learning as I grow and lead this company.
Right. Know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. So I want to fast forward a few years in, right? How old is her headquarters?
We'll be 3 May 2022.
Okay.
Next month.
Okay, perfect. So going on 3 years old.
A whole toddler,
right? And you have a baby, so you know about that whole toddler.
Yeah.
We'll get to the baby as well. But I want to fast forward to that moment. And so I started off with 90 days in the desert, right?
Yeah.
And so jumping a little bit more into there's something that you quoted in the video that you posted with regards to this, and I wrote it down. So oftentimes the breakdown comes right before the breakthrough.
Yeah.
What was your breakdown moment, and what was that breakthrough?
Yeah. So for reference, the 90 days in the desert for me was fall of 2021. I had a baby in May of 2021, and I was very, and I know I'm not going to go too deep in this. I know we're going to come back to the baby, but
no, go if it goes with the story.
Yeah, I was so underprepared. Like, we had the nursery set up, we had all the materialistic things, but mentally and emotionally, I underestimated the depth of the challenge of having a newborn. Like, I didn't even know until we were in the hospital, girl. This is so embarrassing. I didn't even know until we were in the hospital that you had to feed babies every 2 hours around the clock.
Wow.
So when we were in the nursery or in the maternity ward, I remember the nurse came in and she was like, when did you last feed the baby? And I was like, like 7. And this was like maybe 10 o'clock at night. And I fed her at 7 p.m. And the look on this woman's face was like, and she goes, you need to feed her. And I was like, but she ate dinner and she's sleeping. She's like, no, like, you need to feed her every 2 hours around the clock. And so, like, I was at the peak of mental and emotional exhaustion. I set a goal in August of last year to fundraise and raise $1.3 million, and to raise that by Thanksgiving. I'm a very ambitious person. I did not realize that was a little unrealistic, right? But I like a good challenge. And so there's the postpartum, there is the mental exhaustion, there's the healing from a C-section, there is, and to clarify with my app, our revenue model is very different. If you go into a bakery, right, or to a clothing store and you buy a t-shirt or you buy a cake or some cupcakes, you are exchanging payment for those cupcakes. You're exchanging payment for those shoes or for that t-shirt. But majority of you guys watching, you have a Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, and you don't have to pay every time you use it. You didn't even have to pay to set up an account. And so with me having an app, we could have thousands of users, but that doesn't mean we have thousands of people paying. And so while my company was growing, while the world is like, oh my God, you just got featured in Forbes and you got this and you got that, our revenue was not keeping up with our user base growth. So I'm struggling financially behind the scenes. And I'm fundraising, and I'm like, at this point, I'm like, I just got my 90th rejection, and I'm seeing these investors are coming back to me saying, Carina, you need more users, or you need more revenue, or you need more of this. But then let's keep it real. I'm seeing these white women or these white men being honest online about having a fraction of the growth that I have, if they even have a product, and they're raising millions of dollars. So that combination of everything was starting to get to me. I show up for my job every single day, you know what I mean? And when I started to feel like I'm giving 150% to this, and I'm getting progress of 2 miles an hour, and I'm seeing people, it was getting to me. I'll just be honest. It was starting to get to me, and I'm like, yo, God, I didn't even want this. I want to be an event planner at one point. You know what I mean? And then my backup plan was to go into the FBI. So like I had this whole vision for my life, and you called me to go do this. This was your idea, and you got me out here struggling. Like, in the midst of all this, my husband had a restaurant that got hit really hard by COVID, and that had to close down. Wow. And so we have a newborn baby at home. We're struggling financially. He goes back into corporate. Like, from every single avenue, we were being hit. And I was starting to feel like, yo, God, you got me messed up. Like, just to put it all the way, like, out there. Like,
tell him what you said to God.
Girl,
and how you said it.
I had him messed up, you know? This is what I feel. I feel like in any relationship, right, if it's authentic and if it's real, you should be able to express how you feel. Like 100%. Like, I don't have no real relationship with you, not even God, if I can't just be honest and like, I'm hurting, I'm upset, I'm frustrated, and I feel like you left me. And that's where I was feeling. And so the breaking point was I had got like rejection number, let's move it up to like 100. And my parents were in town from Seattle, and I pulled up to my grandparents' house. That's like the gathering spot for the family when they're in town. And checked my email, saw rejection number 100, and I'm just still feeling all this stuff. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm tired of being stressed. I'm tired of not being able to pay myself. I'm this close to losing my team because I can't pay them. Like, just I'm tired of it. Like, at that point, I was like, I'd rather have a 9-to-5 and find a way to love something that I know I'm not supposed to be doing if it meant I could have my peace and my sanity back. Like, people don't realize being a business owner, like if you're an employee, and I get being a business owner is not for everyone, right? Like, if it's not for you, don't jump in the deep end. But if you are an employee, you only have to worry about your job and your responsibility. Business owners and CEOs, they have to worry about everything. Yep. Your job, their job, this person's job, capital and the company's runway, and hiring and firing and strategy. Like, all of the weight falls on them, and I felt I was under a constant pressure 24/7. And I don't have a co-founder, I don't have a business partner, so it was all me. And I'm sitting, and one of the things that really fueled me was generational wealth. Like, I didn't grow up with money. Like, we grew up, you know, low income sometimes, you know. My parents did a great job providing, but like, we didn't grow up with money. And so I always wanted to be able to get my kids in a private school. I wanted to be able to travel the world. I wanted to be able to pass down knowledge and good health, but also millions of dollars to my children, so they didn't have struggles that we had. And it got to the point where I was like, you know what, God, like, if they got to struggle a little bit, it's not too bad. Like, I wasn't even driven by the generational wealth anymore. But I was sitting outside my grandparents' house, and I was praying, and I said, like, God, this was mid-November. I said, if something does not happen by the end of the month, if you don't open up a door that's going to make it easier for me to do the job that you called me to do, I'm done with this company. I already had the plan of taking down the app. I had a plan of how I was going to tell my employees. I had a plan for everything, a public statement, and then dip out and go live my best life. And that wasn't a threat. I wholeheartedly meant that. Like, I'm tired of mentally and emotionally and financially and spiritually struggling. So if you can't throw me a life raft, then I'm done. And then I went in the house, dried up my tears. And my parents like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm good. How y'all doing? 2 weeks later, I got an email from the investors that ended up putting 6 figures into the company. And they said, we want to meet with you. We heard about you from such and such.
And that was after how many rejections?
By the time I got that email, it was just over 100, like between 100 and 115.
Now, just thinking back to that, right? Because you were at your breaking point. You were ready to quit. You had everything planned to shut it down.
I was mentally prepared to quit. Yeah. I was even starting to look at little jobs and get excited about, like PTO and the lunch break. Like, I didn't want it, but I was like, I'm going to find a way to love this, even if I know it's not for me.
Right. How did it feel when you got that email?
To be honest, I was in such a deep place that I thought, okay, like, let me do this little meeting, like, they probably gonna say no to. Like, I wasn't even optimistic.
You weren't even optimistic?
No.
Okay, so the email didn't say, like, oh, we want to give you 6 figures.
It was, we want to meet with you.
Okay.
Another investor previously or a partner at a venture firm, she said, like, basically, we would love to invest, but you're not there yet. But in the meantime, I'm going to introduce you to this firm over here because I think that they would be willing to invest in you earlier. And so she reached out to them, and then they reached out to me, but I wasn't even optimistic about it. They did end up like making the commitment to invest, I believe, on December 23rd. And then we were in the negotiations period for another month. So we actually didn't like sign the paperwork and get the funds until early February. So there was still like 2.5 month period. But yeah, even that first meeting, like I wasn't optimistic because I have been kicked so much that I was like, let me do this little meeting real quick. Like just really dismissive of it. I still showed up, smiled, did what I was supposed to do. But at some point I realized, I think they like kind of serious. And I was like, God, you really came through. Like, cause I was really about to quit. I wasn't playing with you. But yeah, crazy.
So what happened in the investor meeting? Like what for people who don't know, like when you go to investors, how do those meetings sort of go?
Yeah. I think it can be different for every firm or every investor that you talk to, but there are some commonalities. They just kind of want to know a little bit about like your backstory. So like, why are you doing this? I think that investors really tend to prefer founders that have some type of personal story or connection to the problem versus I thought of this great idea and I have no emotional attachment to it. Because if you have an attachment to the problem and you personally experienced it, you are a little bit more passionate about it. A lot of them feel, which I personally do agree with. So it's, what's your background? Tell us about your company. Like, where are you at right now as a company? What are your metrics? Who are your customers? And what's your strategy to grow this company? What's your vision for it? So that was kind of the first meeting with them. And then eventually we moved into due diligence. And with that phase, they're basically kind of making sure that there's nothing that comes up on you or on the company that should make them not invest. So they're not just taking your word for it. I could be like, oh, we have X number of customers and we make this much a month. And okay, but then when they enter due diligence, you have to back that up. So you're providing statements, you're providing, access to your system so they can basically verify, like, what are you saying? They want a deeper dive into your marketing strategy. So maybe during your first meeting, you're giving them a couple minutes overview, like over the next 24 months, we plan to do this. But with the marketing plan during the due diligence stage, they wanted, I believe, a 3-year marketing plan. What have you tried before? What worked? What didn't work? What's your customer acquisition cost? How much does it take you to acquire a customer? And then how many customers will you need? How many paying customers will you need to hit 100 million in revenue? And then they wanted resumes and executive summaries on everyone on the team. So it was a process.
So I want to go back a little bit because I don't know if you noticed about me. I had an app back in the day.
I didn't know that.
I had an app. It was a nail polish app. It was called Shades.
Okay.
And it was to help women of color find nail polishes that complemented their skin tone.
Okay.
Right? The undertone, because warm, cool, neutral, all that stuff. I didn't get so far as 100 no's. I got 1 no, and then I was like, am I really that passionate about this? Because I'm very, self-reflective as you are, and I was like, no, I'm not really that passionate about it. So let me just kind of table this. So
it's good that you caught that early, though.
Yeah, and and like I said earlier, I'm very quick to be like, oh, no, I'm done. Shut it down.
Yeah.
So I shut down the app, but just hearing you say that you got 100 no's, right? And then also hearing you talk about people who were not of color that had less traction than you in the space, barely had an app, probably didn't even have an MVP, right? That were getting fully funded. Billions of dollars, right?
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. And I also used to work for a tech startup that was led by, people of non-color.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about what do you feel is a problem in the tech space as far as, or just in general, as far as funding is concerned, especially for women of color?
That still stings me, to be honest. And I'm trying to get past a place where it doesn't, like I keep reminding myself, like, what's for you is for you, can't nobody take what's yours, blah, 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 all them little sayings. But like, as a human who works hard, it does bother me. and I'm not where I want to be at in that journey of just like, okay, don't worry about them, worry about you. But there are definitely multiple factors to that. The biggest factor is a lot of the decision makers at these firms are white men. And so I can't tell you the number of times I pitched to a venture firm and all of the partners were white men. And so number one, they don't even really connect to the problem I'm solving. Like, they've never been a woman. Most of them probably have never worked at a woman-owned business, right? And so if they don't have experience with the problem that you are solving, and a lot of times women, especially women of color, they're solving problems that typically impact minorities in some way, shape, or form. And so if they can't connect to that, and if there's no one in the room to check their bias, they're going to continue to invest in who they know, or who looks like them. And I think some people are very aware of the bias that they have, and then some people, they think that they are for the advancement and they really aren't, you know?
Yeah, they faking.
Yeah, so I think that's a big problem. I think that it's what they call it, the good old boys club. You see a lot of funding go to white males, or, you know, they went to Ivy League schools, and like, there are founders out there with genius companies, with profitable companies that could get some funding that would scale them and help them maximize their impact, that did not go to, a Ivy League school. They don't live in San Francisco or New York City. So they're automatically, for a lot of these funds, overlooked. So I think it's a series of issues, but we need more people in the room who look like us, women and people of color, and then women who are minorities. Like, it's a multi-tiered problem.
Whose responsibility do you think it is to get more people of color in the room?
That's a great question. I think it's everyone's responsibility. And I think that from the perspective of like, okay, you know, you didn't made it, whatever that means to you, you know, you're successful, now you have wealth, and I'm talking about you as in like a person of color. I do think if you are aware of the problems and the disadvantages and the gaps in wealth and opportunities for people of color, you are a part of the problem if you do not pay it forward and help open that door for other people, right? So maybe that doesn't mean going and joining this VC firm. Maybe it means starting your own. Maybe it means starting your own nonprofit, or giving money to corporations and firms and venture companies that are intentional and have the track record, okay, because don't fall for statements, fall for results, okay? How many people have you invested in that identify as women or people of color? So the people who do make it from the demographic of women or people of color who have the opportunity to give back, they need to be more intentional with how they give back and fact checking these companies they give their money to. And then I think white men, the ones who are quote woke, they need to check these other white boys. Like,
the ones who are quote woke?
Yeah.
Are they really woke?
That's why I said quote.
Okay, all right.
The ones who got a little bit of awareness and have a genuine desire to help. Talk to these boys at the golf club. You know what I mean? Like, talk to them at the cigar bar, and when y'all doing these fancy meetings, like, we need to don't just, I'm so sorry to hear about your experiences, Tara. Talk to Bob about it. You know what I mean? Talk to Robert. Like, do that. Don't pity me. That's what I feel.
So I'm gonna tell you a story. I had an encounter with a quote unquote woke white man. And instead of him taking that and going to talk to Bob, he asked me, what would I do if I was in his position? And so I think a lot of times the quote unquote woke ones are not really actually woke. That's why I asked you that
What did
question.
you say to him? What did you say back to that?
Let me think. This was during the pandemic, like hot in May.
Yeah.
And I think my response to him was, I'm not responsible to tell you what to do in this situation.
Yeah.
You need to figure it out.
That's
something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the week later, there was like an email that went out to the company saying what he was going to do, the action steps he was going to take. The company then set up a like what are those companies, like an affinity group
Yeah.
for the Black people at the company. And they asked me to be a part of it, and I said no. I politely declined. And I knew what was going to happen. I knew what was going to happen. So at that point, it felt performative to me.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why I asked you that question, like, it's no right or wrong answer, right?
Yeah.
I think we do all have responsibility in this fight, but to expect the quote unquote woke ones to take responsibility, I think that's a little bit.
You don't think that's
I don't
there
think
yet?
I don't think we're there yet. I don't think they're there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with someone who is supposedly an ally for HerHeadquarters. And I will say one thing that I have learned, especially for us people of color and women, be careful of people's intentions. Like, people might come to you to join the bandwagon of supporting you in whatever way, shape, or form it might be. Not everyone who is watching you is cheering for you. Remember that. And then number two, even some of the people who approach you to support you, just use some discernment and make sure that like they are supporting you for the right reasons, and you're not the trophy Black person for them to parade around like, look at, I helped this person with this. But I definitely think I have someone like that, and I'm trying to choose my words very carefully.
I understand.
I think I have someone like that, unfortunately, in our support network. And I did not realize it at first. It kind of became clear, I want to say like about a year to a year and a half after they started affiliating with us in whatever capacity they did. And it was really disappointing. And it made me realize that I need to do a better job of selecting who we work with and getting an idea of their intentions, but also like doing my due diligence on them. Who have we worked with before? I want to talk to them. I want to do reference checks, because it's not just about am I a good fit for them, but are you a good fit for us?
Yep.
And I think people need to realize and remember that, I think I gave this example the other day, like, we live in a world where people are guilty by association. Period. Like, you could have a stainless character, but if someone you work with, or you bring someone into your company as an advisor or an investor, or you partner with the wrong person, and it comes out that this person has, they are abusive, domestic violence charges, or pedophilia, or they out here embezzling money, that put a stain on you too.
Right.
And I didn't realize that until a little bit later. I was like, I don't think I like your character too much.
So did you do the due diligence on that person after the fact and find out that there were some potential stains that...
Nope.
No. Okay.
When this person and I started working together, and they are not an employee, but when we started working together a few years ago, I was in a bind. And so I kind of felt like my back was in a corner, and I kind of just was focused on, this is what we need and this is what you have, and let's just do it, And then, and to clarify, this person, nothing like, just, it's their attitude and their mindset that I don't like, especially with me being a Black woman and certain comments that have been made. I'm like, you don't really support me. Like, and I just realized it was one of those situations where like, it makes me look good to work with you.
To be associated.
Yeah.
Got it.
It was one of those situations. And it was said to me in the most blatant, disrespectful, to my face type scenario, like that I was almost speechless. Like, I didn't even know what to say, because I was just like, wow. So be very careful of that.
Yes. What are some tips that you would give people to do due diligence? Like, how do you do some thorough due diligence on a person?
We live in the world of social media. Start with your social media first. A lot of times we're so used to checking people's LinkedIn professionally that you're going to get a whole lot more insight if you're checking their Facebook.
It's what those jobs doing anyway for the career girls.
Yeah.
They're looking on your Facebook and your Instagram, so do the same thing.
I'll give you a real example. Someone I know, she was kind of doing like some matchmaking. So like, if companies said, hey, we need a marketing executive, or we're looking for an investor, we're looking for an advisor. She was essentially like the connector, right? She said, okay, so I told her, we are looking for an investor that can invest this amount, et cetera, et cetera. And she ended up coming back to me with, okay, you need to meet such and such. He's invested in companies before. He can give you at least, 100,000, blah, 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 blah. And it was funny because when she was talking, and if you're a company and you need money and you hear, oh, such and such could easily invest 100,000, most people would be like, yes, connect me today, but I want to talk to him. But something told me, she said, do you want me to go ahead and introduce, your company to him and send over could we have like a 1-pager introduction document? And something told me to tell her no. And I didn't know what that feeling was coming from, but I said, well, no, let me check into it first. I looked him up. His Facebook was actually public, and the first few posts was, family, whatever. I got to scrolling back to the timeline of when George Floyd was killed. His post was nothing but N-word this and N-word that, and that's what he gets, and he got himself killed, and when will these N-words learn, and all of this stuff. And I was like, but you go to his LinkedIn, it's clean, it's professional, and so people tend to, especially on LinkedIn, to get the more polished, professional version of themselves. They feel safer to be them true, authentic selves on Facebook. And so I would start with, check their LinkedIn, but like check their personal social medias is number one. Do reference checks. So like ask them for maybe 1 or 2 references, but then also, if you see in your search that this person has worked with this person or this person has worked with this company, also check references of people that they did not give to you. Because no one's going to be like, oh, I gave her a bad experience, so I'm going to pass her name along. No, you're not going to mention that person that has something bad to say about you. But you want a full verse, well-rounded review of what is it like to work with this person, and ask questions like, in what ways have they helped you? If you knew now what you knew about this person when you guys first started working together, would you work with him or her again, and why? Depending on the caliber of the partnership, maybe doing a background check. I don't think that's always necessary, but if this is going to be a long time partnership and they're going to help be like a huge face of your company, like, you want to make sure they ain't been trafficking drugs and all this type of crazy stuff. So I would say those are definitely some starting places.
Got it. So we talked loosely about what Her Headquarters is.
Yeah.
Now I want you to give us the official, what is Her Headquarters?
Yeah. Okay. So Her Headquarters is an app catered to women-owned businesses and their teams. And when I say teams, I mean men and women on the teams. And essentially, via our app, we help them identify brand partnership opportunities that are a great fit for the company based off of their preferences. So let me give an actual story of like what that actually means and what that looks like. We had a user in Houston who had a full service salon, and during COVID, non-essential businesses had to close down. And so most people don't consider the salon an essential business. And so her doors were closed, and she's kind of freaking out, like, I don't know how long, we're going to be closed for. I need to make money. And so she thought of a really creative idea, and she wanted to create limited edition at-home spa day kits. And she wanted to partner with another woman-owned business, ideally within the beauty or skincare industry. So she gets on our app and she posts, I want to partner with another business. I want to create limited edition at-home spa day kits. This is what I'm going to contribute to the partnership. This is how I'm looking for this business to contribute to the partnership. And these are the perks. We're going to split the revenue. It's going to boost both of our exposure online, et cetera, et cetera. Another user in San Francisco had a skincare business, and she's just scrolling through the app one day and she sees this opportunity and she's like, this is a perfect fit for my business. These two businesses came together from Houston and San Francisco. They created these spa day kits that were limited edition. They both, they made thousands of dollars on selling these because they marketed to their audience online, email newsletters, all of that. And they discovered each other through Her Headquarters. So our users, we see everything from social media agencies to event planning companies, fashion brands, event planners, like everything that you can think of. And the one thing they all have in common, despite their industry or their location, is they want to use partnerships to grow their business, and specifically partnering with women-owned businesses and their teams.
Can you give an example? So for my audience, which is product-based founders and entrepreneurs, can you give an example of how they would be able to leverage that.
Yeah. So let me think of a product-based business. Let's say you own a juice company, or you make juices and smoothies, right? A potential partnership for you might be if you obviously you want to get your product out there, get more customers, get more exposure. Maybe there is a business that's doing a pop-up and they want products there for in food and drinks for their guests to enjoy. Or maybe it's a conference. That is a potential partnership that you can discover in her headquarters. Get your product at this pop-up, get your product at this conference, and in exchange you're getting the exposure. Their customers and their attendees are, getting to consume your products. And one thing about our platform, something cool that we're introducing is actually partnership levels. And so we have a really diverse user base where some of our users are in their first couple of years of business. And then, we have some women who's had businesses around for like 7-10 years or longer. So really different stages. And based off of the stage that you're at in business, that might determine the resources that you have. So what we're about to do is introduce partnership levels. So maybe if you are a more established business and you have, bigger budgets and you're looking for higher value partnerships, you can filter by not just location and preferences, but also partnership values. But if you're a smaller business, you're like, hey, I only have a $200 budget for a partnership, but I still want something mutually beneficial, you can filter and you can see partnerships that have lower values, but that are still mutually beneficial.
So I truly believe, because I've, known you since the beginning, or in the beginning stages of Her Headquarters, I truly believe that this is the next $1 billion tech company. And I'm intentionally not just calling it an app, because I understand in the tech world you may start somewhere and end up somewhere else. So I know you just shared a little bit about what's
that makes me happy to hear someone who looks like me say that. Thank you.
Absolutely. I wholeheartedly believe in what you are doing with Her Headquarters, the app, everything. In that $1 billion plus, right? Multiple billions of dollars, right?
And then we're going to start a VC fund and invest in women who look like us.
You know what? We need to talk about that, because I literally do want to start a VC fund.
Yeah.
So we can talk. Yeah. We're going to have that sidebar offline. But yes, with Her Headquarters, what's next? Like, what are you looking? And I'm not saying short term, maybe 5 to 10 years. Because I know the roadmap is already laid out.
What's next for Her Headquarters? I'm trying to think of what I can share.
What you can share, right? Because a lot of stuff is proprietary.
Yeah. So I say what I can share is that we are coming out with the desktop version. One thing that we hear a lot is like, girl, I'm not trying to do all this typing on my phone. Like, so we're going to make it easier for our users and their teams to use the app by launching a desktop version, targeted to come out later this fall. Let's see what else. I would say launching internationally is something, the year that we launched, one thing that we had on our website was like request Her Headquarters in your city, because we originally only released the app in specific cities in the US. And I'm expecting the forms to be like, released in Chicago, released in Dallas. No. I was saying, we want you in Cape Town, Africa. We need you in Melbourne, Australia. We need you in London. And granted, I always wanted to go international, but like, we just launched. We're not there yet. We got to master our market first. So definitely, I would say releasing in international markets is on our plans. But ultimately, my big vision for Her Headquarters is to become a company that women-owned businesses and their teams can depend on for quality partnerships. We want to roll out corporate partnerships. So giving these small women-owned businesses the opportunity to partner with the Nikes and the L'Oreals and the Coca-Colas through Her Headquarters. So that's something that we're working on. But I want it to be like, you ain't checked the app in 3 days, because you've been busy in life and traveling, and you're like, dang, like, I'm so mad. I know I done missed at least 3 $20,000 partnerships. Like, that's what we're working on. My vision is impact. I want to be able to sit down from women-owned businesses, and they say, after I started using Her Headquarters, our business grew, our team grew, because I secured partnerships through your app that opened up doors and broke glass ceilings for my company. That's my vision, and that includes and I'm happy you said tech company, because I definitely want to expand outside of tech. Not going to share how just yet, but that's my vision, just global impact, and making it easier for these women to build generational wealth through the partnerships that they secured that just accelerated the growth of their companies.
I love this, and I'm so excited, and I'm so glad you shared just a little bit of what you can share. So last question, how is family life now?
Man, I miss my baby. Like,
I know you're traveling.
Yes. Okay. So I left the airport I left Omaha a few days ago, and it was typically like pre-baby Carina. I'm like, I can't wait to get out of Omaha. I'm going to LA. I'm going to Atlanta. Like, just I'm out here, hot girl summer, like all of that, right? And this time I was tearing up at the airport. Like, I did not want to leave my baby. And I've been sneak looking at the baby monitor, like just obsessing. But I'm very grateful. This experience of like being away for the first time since I've had a baby makes me really grateful for my husband. Like, he's holding it down, and I was, now that he's back, doing the 9 to 5, I was telling him, like, I feel so bad because I'm going to be traveling so much this year for work, and you had to request all that time off to have the baby. And he said, Carina, we're a team. He said, like, you're doing your part and I'm doing my part, and don't feel bad. Like, do what you have to do. And, I know some people who don't have that type of support system or don't have that type of partner. So, like, I'm very, very, very grateful. We celebrate our 3-year anniversary this year.
Yes.
My baby turns 1 this year. We got a whole safari themed party with the animals and stuff. I'm really grateful for what I have.
I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy that you continue to walk through the desert. And now you're out.
Yeah. I don't want to go back either.
Yeah, don't.
I mean, everyone go back. But life.
Right. It'll be under different circumstances.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
On your own terms.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm grateful for everything.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Carina.
Tell
the people where they can find you, her headquarters.
Yeah. We are everywhere except Snapchat and TikTok. I'm gonna get on it, I promise. But like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, it's all her headquarters. And then if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's Carina Glover. And if you want to connect with me on Instagram, her name is Carina.
And that is it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll see y'all on the next episode.